Welcome to our All Started Podcast in North Iowa. My name is Erick Nganyange, and my guest today is the owner of the Dental Center of North Iowa, Dr. Erick Burns. Erick, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
Mason City class grad of 2006?
2006, Mason City Mohawks at the time.
So were you born and raised in Mason City then?
Born and raised.
Oh,
yep.
wow. Okay.
Yep. So my parents lived in Mason City, but my mother was born and raised. And actually, her whole family, the Currys, actually owned a hardware store way back in the 1800s. So there were like 6 generations of Currys in this area. And then really that was kind of when my father graduated dental school. That's why they moved back to my mother's hometown.
Where your dad from?
So my dad's from Monmouth, Illinois. It's a small town outside the Quad Cities. His father was a grocer, and he ran a hospital in World War II. And he came back and just started a family. So he opened up a grocery store, and that's what he did for his career, and that's where my folks grew up, and there my dad grew up, and then they moved here, and after my dad went to dental school and then in University of Iowa, and then came to Mason City.
Oh, wow. So your dad grew up in Illinois, and then he just left there to go to the dental school?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story, actually.
Yeah.
You know, so his best friend, my namesake, we call him Big Erick, because that's
his name?
a great name, right?
Oh, yeah.
Great
Erick
name.
has always been a great name.
Yeah, so long story short, they were born on the same day, best friends through elementary school, middle school, high school. And then this Erick, JD is his name, he actually decided he was going to go to dental school. So how about this? So you're going to go first, he went to Cornell College. First, I should say that. They decided to go to Cornell College together. Okay. So they're there, they're best buddies. And then finally, Erick goes, I'm going to go to a dentist. Yeah. So then my dad goes, well, hell, I guess I don't have a plan, so why don't I go try that? So he applied and got in. And at that point, it was, there wasn't like the dog eat dog world of like getting into medical school then, but I mean, you had to have good grades, and they both did. So, and that's how they ended up at University of Iowa. Yep.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a funny story. So you never know if his best friend was, like I said, a lawyer or like a musician. Who knows where we'd be.
So how did they ended up in, both of them from Illinois?
Both from Illinois.
How did they ended up at University of
So I think Erick JD, so he actually applied to the university. So I think he was already like, I'm going. Yeah. And then my dad, I think this, as the story goes, he was like, well, I'll try it too, and applied. And then sure enough, and I think there was maybe some, because Iowa, Illinois, sometimes the cost is a little lower or things like that. But again, and then they headed that direction. And then Erick JD actually joined the military and became an endodontist. Well, then my dad at that time moved to Mason City, and then had married in 78, graduated in 1980 from dental school, and then they came and lived here for a few years. And then I have an older brother and an older sister that came in 82, 84, and I was 87. So
oh my goodness! So your dad met your mom where? Here?
In Cornell College. So it was so they met at a local drinking hole, as they say, and they just hit it off. And then she came to Iowa City with him, and she was a student as well for 2 more years at Cornell, and Cornell is very close to Iowa City. Yeah. So it's like, it made sense to kind of just go south. And so she finished up her degree, and then he finished up dental school, and
they say let's move to.
And then
let's move to my hometown.
So her parents were still alive, and we had some other family here. So he said, yeah, let's move. And and when you're graduating dental school and you haven't had a job, you're not it's not super well off. And,
you just like, Mason City sounds good. Let's go.
Yeah. So anyway, they came here, and my grandparents, I think, helped them out.
And then they ended up staying here for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, so my dad joined a dentist back in 1980, and so it was kind of one of those things where as someone's kind of slowing down, you kind of have a new dentist come in, and you kind of buy their practice. And so anyway, so he had a place in here, and they also had a little dental office in Rockwell, and then you just kind of, as things kind of grew, he actually ended up in the same building that we're at there, and you know. And again, crazy scenario about how we ended up in the building. And then my dad, it's a funny story. So he was just at a bar, and sure enough, the other doctor, Bergmeyer, and then Craig Scott, these two guys happened to be sitting down, thinking about building a building. They just needed a third guy. So Dan and my dad worked out a deal with Craig that if he could help build it, they'll help buy it. And then sure enough, it's been home for both of them.
Oh, so they built that building?
They built that building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was so it's kind of one of those things. And again, if he wasn't at that spot, who knows what we would have done.
Seems like your dad made a lot of good decisions at the bar.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Work hard, play hard, right? Yeah. But lucky, good acquaintances. So, and then obviously we're carrying it on still today. So
my goodness. Now you went to, after Mason City High, where did you go, to Drake or did you go to Nyack?
No, I actually went to Drake. So I went to Drake. Yeah, there was I got a pretty good scholarship to go down there, and I was going back and forth between University of Iowa and Drake, and I kind of, I didn't really know what I wanted to do yet, but
by the time you're going to Drake, you did not know.
I kind of knew I wanted to do some kind of healthcare, but the interesting thing is, in high school, I liked the sciences and the math. I loved that, but I also kind of had I liked the art part of it. I didn't, it wasn't like sculpting, but I liked the photography and things like that. You could just tell I just liked the interest of like something looking pleasant. You know what I mean? So I was kind of going back and forth, and my dad's, as dentist, sitting goes, as a dentist, you have to do a little bit of both, right? You have to create, you have to kind of be, your own artist, and so
he nudged you.
So he goes, well, this is a pretty good, deal. And so I go, okay, well, Drake, so I go, if I was thinking about being a dentist, where would I go? Well, University of Iowa is a great dental school, not worried about, where I was going to go, because it trains you for all the types of specialties and things like that. So I kind of said, well, if I was going to go to University of Iowa, what's a good school? Well, Drake had 90% of their, people that were on that track get in, meaning if you had good grades and you took these courses with this, it was enough, street credit to say, hey, this guy's in.
He's legit.
Yeah. So and then it was kind of a unique thing that if you had in University of Iowa after your freshman year, if you maintained like a 3.8 GPA and scored a national average, I could actually get in like an early admittance.
Oh, okay.
So actually in the spring of my freshman year, I got into dental school. So
in the spring of my freshman in Drake.
In Drake.
Oh.
So they basically said, and there was just a small handful that they would do this for. And so it was basically kind of a thing that I just had a goal. I said, hey, if I get these grades and I do well, I've got a spot.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about the interviews and things that people have to go and stress out about it. I was kind of, and again.
Forward thinking.
Yeah, forward thinking. So, and, and I was always, I had a cousin that was really successful. And I remember him setting me down one time and he said, those first years of school, just, those classes, they may be tougher than what you're dealing with now, but think when you're a senior, how easy those first classes were. So he's like, so do your best, so I got a 4.0 in high school. So I got, all A's. And so he's like, it's tough to do in college, but those early ones. So sure enough, I had basically got all but a 1 B plus. So, so basically got a 4.0 in college, and which was well above, but it's almost like, cause if you had a goal, you knew that you could reach it.
At that time, now you're freshman at Drake. Did he already form in your head that I'm going to go to the dental school? Well, or was that the first thing for you? Or
no, I mean, here's the thing. I kind of had that idea that was the door that was open if I went to Drake. I wasn't set on it, but I kind of liked the sciences, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do medical school or things like that.
You knew you want to be in the health industry.
Yeah, healthcare. I like taking care of, working with people. And I think my father being a dentist, I grew up knowing, and, I always kind of think, okay, what's the important things, right? Yeah. So when he said, family first, right? So as a dentist, you have your own control of your schedule. You could, if my sister had a dance recital or a concert, or if I had a game, you could take it off. It wasn't like, I'm going to miss this one, and hopefully I'll catch the next one. You work as hard as you want. One of my favorite, stories was, a sermon that a pastor gave me. And it was about, two brothers. And he used the example of that both of them could catch fish better than anybody else. Well, they'd go out and they would catch fish from 8 to 10, and they would bring the fish back and they would give it, what they had for their family. and that was and they spent the rest of the day with their family. And the idea is one brother goes, well, I can teach another friend how to catch, and then catch a few more and sell it at the market. So then he sells at the market. So he's gone from 8 to 10 and then 10 to 12. And then basically one brother does the same thing over and over. He goes and gets what he needs for the family, comes back with his little boat and his little house. Well, the other one gets, a fleet of boats, and everybody's doing this, and he grows this big business on how to catch these fish, and the end result is, and he says, oh, I'm a family man, but then what he does is he's doing all these meetings and he's going all these directions, but
taking out his time.
But then all he's doing, and he's like, oh, I got to make sure I schedule some fishing with my son on Saturday, and so he goes, well, the one guy spends every day with his family, and one guy says he's a family man, but he only spends 4 hours fishing with his kid.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to put your time, or you have to be able to be in control of that scenario. So like if I wanted to be a dentist from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. every day, or, on the Saturdays and things like that, I could have long hours. I could do that. Or if I said, hey, I want to be done at 3:30 when my son is done from school, it's like you can kind of pick and choose a little bit. Now you have to make sacrifice. If you don't work as hard, you don't have as big a boat, right? So it's kind of one of those things you have to. But in dentistry, you do get a little more flexibility, where where some jobs you have to go every Monday through Friday, and you even if you'd want to not make quite as less to have more time, you don't have that opportunity. So really, when you think big picture, it kind of stuck with me.
Family matters.
It does.
You are thinking more about, man, I need to do my career, make good money, but also I need to spend time with my family when I want to do it.
Yeah.
Not when my employer tell me when to do it.
Right. And then the thing is, so I've got an older sister and an older brother. And my older brother has special needs, and he lives independently up in Minneapolis. But he works at Walgreens, and he does well, and we have some grandmother that passed away some money and things like that. So he's not, short for that. But given if my parents, when they pass away, he's in such a comfortable spot up there. He's happy. It's one of those things that because he's thriving up there, if they're gone, I also, in case he needs help, you could support, So it wasn't just just the family thing. Is like, I also had to have some responsibility saying, if these things happen, and I have a sister too that would help out, but it's also one of those things where it's nice to have the flexibility or the ability to help if you need.
That's the key word, flexibility. So what do your sister do?
She works, she's a mother of 3, but she works for Rockwell Collins in Cedar Rapids.
So what did you end up studying at Drake?
I got a Bachelor of Science in Biology.
Okay.
So I did the sciences, and really you got everything that you needed. Again, for the prerequisites for dental, you had to have so many of this and these courses, and that track at Drake happened to just hit all, check all the boxes
that you need.
So,
So then after Drake, you went to the University of Iowa?
Yeah, I did. So for dental school.
How long is that?
It's 4 years, about 4.5 years when you really knock it down. But
wow.
Yeah. So it's another 4 years after college. And they got to make sure
8 years in there.
Yeah. I always tell people, as my patients, I said, they put us through, if you're going to use sharp things in the middle of your head, you got to know what you're doing.
How was that experience for you?
It was great. It was great. It's kind of a unique scenario because in undergrad, you've got a lot of people doing a lot of things. Accounting, you've got friends that are doing this. When you get into dental school, everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Kind of the interests are the same. The classes are the same. So, you work hard, you play hard, together. I met some really close friends in dental school. One of them is actually now my partner in business.
Oh, okay.
Dan Garman. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So he was one of my best friends in dental school, and really he's from Algona. Yeah. And his wife was a bank examiner for the Northwest corner. So I kind of threw it out to him, and he's like, I'm pretty happy down in Ames, but sure enough, the way it all worked out, I needed it when my father retired. I needed to have a partner to kind of run the business with. And sure enough, we went down there, and they said, hey, that's a great scenario. So now they built a house down the block, and Dan and I are partners. And
nice.
Yeah. So it's pretty lucky, and again, but just a good friend from dental school. Cause again, you spend a lot of time in dental school. And like I said, 4 years, and you're working hard. You're working twice as hard. Yeah. It's great. Yeah. But you do twice as much as you do in those 4 years that you did in the first 4. So, but like I said, but you do it together, so it doesn't seem as daunting.
When did your dad retire?
2 years ago. So I came back in 2014 from dental school, and I brought my wife along with me, who was a hygienist. She had graduated from hygiene school and was working down in Iowa City.
Is she from Iowa City or
She's from Mason City.
So you guys met there?
We did. Yeah. Oh, okay. Now, ironically, my wife was a patient of my father's growing up.
Oh, wow.
So to talk about a full circle.
Talk about connection.
So when I introduced her, he goes, well, I've known her since she's been about 5, And so anyway, so it was, but again, she was a couple years older. So our friend group didn't connect. So when she was down in Iowa City, we just happened to, connect, and then, things, here we are.
Wow. And you guys got what, 2 boys now?
Yep, 2 boys.
How old?
4 and 6. So
okay.
Yeah, about to turn 5 and 7, but yeah, they're great.
Man, this is interesting. It's just interesting how the dots connecting.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. And then so Katie, my wife, her family, her father was a cop in town for about 50 years on the north end. It's kind of one of the tougher guys that was hard on you but let you go. So about everybody that was from Mason City. Knew, so again, there was a lot of connections. So Mason City was a pretty easy spot. Obviously it's, some of the bells and whistles the big cities don't have, but just what we needed.
Oh my goodness. I want to go back to the story you start telling about how the Dental Center of North Iowa started.
Yeah. So really my father knew he wanted to move back to Mason City just because my mother's hometown. And then again, there was a dentist that basically kind of said, the way it worked then, it wasn't like you joined the practice and started seeing patients. He just said, well, you could come kind of work out of my building, and so it was one of those, and kind of mentors him along. And his name was Jim Ohlenberg. So he was a longtime dentist in Mason City. And it was kind of one of those things that if, patients go to the same building and you're kind of have the same philosophy, it's an easy transition, So my dad was just kind of growing the business, but I mean, it was a small brick building, and
so this is right when he come in, he's working for this guy, basically.
Yeah, and really, and I'm not sure exactly like working. It's really working alongside, his own business. So my dad had his own first year, and it's crazy to look at like what. Those numbers and things like, and he's like, boy, it's a different world out there. Yeah. But he was penciling in, little, so it's kind of cool to see like he gave that to me just for perspective, Mm-hmm. So again, very, very small practice. And then just slowly over time grew and grew. So then Dr. Ohlenberg, he retired. So then my father was working, and then there was a dentist in Rockwell that was retiring. So my father had got another dentist to kind of start working with him when Dr. Ohlenberg retired. So he worked a couple years alone, and then he got a partner to come in. And then in Rockwell, a building came open. So they kind of worked between Rockwell and Mason City. Mm. And so really they were and as he was growing, it just got busier, and so that's when that building, I think it was in 92 or 93 that they built that building. Yeah. He had a partner for about 25 years. Mike Lusher is his name. Okay. Now it's a interesting thing because when I moved back to Mason City, I thought I was working with just my father and then his partner. Now his partner was significantly younger, and we got along, the family, we knew the families, but what's wild is my father's partner had 2 sons that were becoming dentists. Okay. So how about this? And they, for family reasons and kind of girlfriend reasons, they decided Mason City wasn't for the kids. Mm. So then they came over like a Thanksgiving, and basically, long story short, however it happened, they said, hey, Dad, we're not going to go back to Mason City. Well, then Mike goes, well, if you're going to be down in Des Moines or Waukee, why don't I just go down to Des Moines or Waukee? So then basically Mike went and built a practice for him and his children down in Des Moines. So my dad said, it was kind of a funny story. So
this was your dad's partner.
This is my dad's partner. I thought I was
for how many years?
20 some years.
All of a sudden he's packing up and say, hey, I'm going to Des Moines.
Right. So the crazy way this all worked out was I thought I would be Mike Lusher's partner, which would have been fine and things like that. But then obviously when he left, my dad goes, well, it's kind of, so imagine this. I was going to buy my dad's half of the practice when it was going to be when he's retiring. Right. Yeah. Well, then the crazy thing was, he sat me down and said, hey, you can't buy my half. And I was like, and then he just left me hanging there. And then basically what it was, we're sitting, having a beer like at a restaurant, and he just left me there. And he goes, nope, because you got to buy mics. So all in a second, he goes, just wait a second. Because I was thinking, oh no, now I'm not going to be, this is all not working how it was planned. But then he goes, no, but think of it this way. Now we're partners. You're going to be partners with your father, and then when I retire, you get to choose your partner. So, oh my goodness! So you talk about stars aligning. I mean, it was like and again, like I said, it worked out for both. My dad's partner and us. But then I could kind of go, well, there was, I had a couple friends in dental school, but there was really, there's one guy that I was like, he's about the only guy that I really think we would work, and that was Dan Garman. So he goes, well, let's call Dan, and then we basically made it all happen. And
wow, it's kind of then you ended up. I think that's probably the best scenario or the best situation for any son or any father.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's like probably that's the most proud moment a father can have. Like, I'm a dentist and I've been in this industry for years. Now my son is under my umbrella.
Yep.
I'm training him and I'm working with him every day.
Yeah, it's great. And and really my dad, I love my dad as is, but his dentistry was good too. So here's another thing is, I tell people there's a lot of chefs out there, and you can give the same recipe to 10 different chefs.
Yep.
You will get 10 different recipes.
Oh,
so you got to learn some tricks. And I always tell people when I got to the dental school, if you're by yourself, there's a lot of learning on the go. I could say, we would talk about cases every night, and I'd say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. He's going, well, I've done 1,000 this way and 1,000 this way. I'd go this way for sure. Yeah. And here's why. So, it was like leaping me years ahead. It was invaluable. And like I said, it's put me light years ahead of where I would be by myself. And then there's also like the business side of things. It's how to handle things. You talk about just attitudes and, situations.
Yeah.
And there's been so many situations that you'd go, the wisdom, shines
that
through.
Wisdom. Yep.
Shines through.
Yep. I don't know how it worked because your dad was my original dentist.
Yep.
And then I transitioned to you. And for me, I did not feel the difference.
Yeah. And we try, honestly, and I think even with our other doctors, we have two other doctors besides Dan Garman. It's Dr. Cole Blodgett and Dr. Katie Outland. The thing is, we're all trained in a similar way, and it's also like philosophy, mindset. Yeah. So again, just like my father did that when I came, Dan and I did that, and you kind of get on the same thing, and then also your staff gets on the same. Again, it's more of an environment. Once you know the dentistry, it's how to present it, how to make sure somebody gets the best care, feels the most comfortable, and like I said,
and from a patient perspective, I want to make sure I'm getting the same service that I was getting. Yeah, that's what I was coming here for that reason.
And there's a lot of eyebrows raised when it's you're the son.
Yep.
And again, I say like I accept the challenge. And here's the thing. I just say and really I said we used to joke. I called my father Dr. Barnes 1.0, and I was Dr. Barnes 2.0. No, so he did it's a 2.0 thing. So but then he goes, but that sounds like I'm outdated, so we can't do that. But there are patients. I always tell people like a dentist, and I use it like a barber. If you go there, you have a good experience. They know you, they know how to cut your. Let's stick with.
You fall in love with them.
Yeah, and just like any provider, you kind of get a relationship, and you get on the same page.
Mm-hmm. And you will have people like, oh man, Blake Barnes was the best, and now he's retiring. I don't know about his boy. I'll go somewhere else. You're probably going to have that small percentage of people.
You are.
Yeah.
But usually, the thing about dentistry and patients, we appreciate it on, people are loyal. It's almost like, once you get the trust of somebody, it's not like if you feel like you guys are mentally on the same page, and then they don't really need to, it's not like you go somewhere else, because if you're on the same page, that's what you're getting. And if you trust the chef to cook a good meal, or
people usually don't shop around it's almost like car insurance.
Yeah.
Once you have, it's like rarely people start shopping around for something new unless something real crazy happen.
Yeah.
Me and you were talking about this before we started. The power of influence, I guess, or mentoring. If your father, Blake Barnes, was not a dentist, or he was a lawyer, or he was a farmer.
Yeah.
Was there a high chance that you
be a
might
farmer?
be?
Yeah. It's hard to know. You know, again, like I said, if you see what you almost kind of see what you can get. I saw what the life my father had. You know, I saw what he could do with his family, with the church. You know, with everything. You know. Those are kind of things that I go, well, if I get down this road, and we have people that shadow us all the time, you know, kids,
like young people,
and they're 16, 15, you know, sometimes in college. And it's like my one time to, you know, the Sermon on the Mount, like I can get their attention, and I tell them it's the best, because there's a lot of people that they want it just like I was, healthcare field. Mm-hmm. Is it the dentist? Is it a surgeon? Is it, you know, a chiropractic, you know? And I kind of tell people, you know, dentistry, besides the things we were saying with the family and the facility, you know, one of the things just for the patients, you know, I tell people, if you have somebody as a medical doctor and you're working with someone who's a diabetic, and you have all these numbers to shoot for, and it's a 30-year long, it's a lifelong, you know, it's a great service, but I'll tell you, when you fix someone's smile, that moment, you get it that moment, right there. And it's immediate gratification for the patient, for you. You know, we've had people that you look at their first profile, you know, when we take a picture, they don't show their teeth, and then by the end of it, that's all you see, you know. And there's something about that you know, with our staff, you know, from the front to back, because we talk about all the goods and the bads, and you know, but the success, you can see it beaming from all the way in the back. And you know, and obviously Iowa's a pretty, you know, it's a rural place, you know, people bring, you know, a cake in, or they bring these tokens of appreciation. And, you know, we have a farmer that brings, you know, produce for the girls, but it's just little things like that, you know.
When they bring cake in, do you go like, that's not good for your teeth?
Yo, we talk about that. Yeah, we talk about that. Yeah, I know.
It's like, hey, you know, this is the dentist's office, and
brush and floss after. Yeah.
So how long because I think you say your father started in 1980 something?
In 1980, yep. 1980, yep.
All the way until 2 years ago.
Yep.
Basically.
Yep. So he worked 42 years. He'd said that I kept him working a little longer because, again, scenarios were different. If he was working with a partner and had no son to be with,
he would probably retire.
It wasn't, but really, once we started working together, it was fun. He told me he got a little more energy, and it was a little more fun because, again, you get to work with.
I think that's
to be enjoyable.
And I think this probably was a proud moment for him too.
It was kind of one of those, you know, and it's kind of how do you get your family or your son on the best track?
Yep.
And you know, here, I'm walking you along, and then as soon as you're good, I'm going to let you go. And that's really how it kind of was. And even with Dan that came back, he worked for, you know, in 2018 is when Dan got here. So Dan worked here for 3-4 years, you know, just alongside. So it's just almost we could all soak in as much as we could.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Interesting. So when he started working these couple different places, and then in the 90s, he ran into these other two guys. Yeah, so talking at the bar.
Yeah. So they got the building, but now, you know, interestingly enough, we one of the gentlemen, they own another dental practice, Bergmeyer Dentistry, right next door. So we share the same building. But and then really what it was is my father and Mike, who is his partner, it was just one of those, when Mike joined, they were busy, but not busy enough for two yet. And so then they bought a practice in Belmont, Iowa. There was a dentist there that was retiring. And so kind of one of those things where Mike said, well, I could go down there, you know, to keep the practice, you know, serve the community and come back. And it'll keep him busier and things like that. And then also Britt, Iowa, had the same scenario. So Mike traveled around to all locations, and then when I joined, we started going to all three locations.
Okay, you know? So you guys now have three locations.
So we have Mason City, Belmont, and Britt.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So 3 practices. Now, same group, right? So it's not like we have 8 people that stay all there and 8 people. You know, same doctors do a little in each location, so you kind of, and then hygienists kind of move around. But you know, there's a crew that is a main crew in each spot. It's kind of the same business, just different places, different days. Yeah,
it's basically almost like a portable business.
Yeah, it really is.
You just take it over here and put it over there for a day or two, and then you just...
Well, and that's the thing. So it was just 2 days a piece, and then when I started coming, joining, then we just started growing, And actually, we just built a brand new building down in Belmont and just doubled our size.
Oh, wow.
We've had a lot of, with this. Again, you do good work and you're part of the community supports you. And I mean, here, Belmont, especially smaller the towns, the more, this is the only guy that's here, let's help him out.
People get attached to it.
Yeah. So anyway, so then we built a new practice down there about 4 years ago. So right as my dad was retiring. So that's his gift to us. So, but so really, we've kind of got a good establishment in each of those spots.
When did the name Dental Center of North Iowa came about? Was that always the name?
Well, no, I think it was once they got the third location, it was Barnes and Lushers. It was just Barnes, it's a lot like a lawyer. Dentistry just used their names often. And so he was, Barnes and Lusher for a while. But then obviously I was joining. So we didn't want to do the lawyer, the Anderson, or whatever, law firm or so anyway, so then that's when they kind of switched to kind of just do the, so I think that was probably in 2012 or so. So again, same people, but again, when you have different locations, you kind of have to, we wanted to make sure that if you got the treatment, in Britt or Belmont, you're going to get the good treatment.
You have what? 3 dentists?
Yeah, so actually a 4th. So
okay.
Yeah, so we've got 3 full-time, and then we've got down in Belmont, Dr. Katie Odlin. She's a dentist that her husband's an orthopedic surgeon down in Clarion, so she just works a few days for us. But 3 full-time doctors.
And 1 part-time?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know why I never asked this question years ago. What's the difference between hygienist and is that a assistant?
So there's a dental assistant.
Dental assistant.
Yeah. So
what's the difference between
the dental assistant is the one who helps the doctor, their right hand person. Oh, okay. So they're with the patients, and now a hygienist, and now that's an on the job training. You can go to school for it, and there is. But as far as hygiene, it's a 2-year program. So it's something that they go through and they see patients. So it's a little more of the deeper cleanings and things like that. So there's a pretty big distinction of what they're doing. Yeah. They're all super friendly and all. When you go in there, you know someone's with you, but what they're called, it's hard to know sometimes. Yeah. But
the dentist that your dad started in the 80s is not the same today.
No,
from technology perspective.
Oh yeah,
it's probably different too.
Oh man, it's almost like a museum. You talk about now some of the things. Some of the principles of the biology is the same. The materials and the things we can do, and we're using 3D scanners and 3D printers and doing all this. Cool, marrying an image with a 3D model to, it's unbelievable the stuff you can do. Yeah. And that's kind of the cool part about being in dentistry, right? So, it's also like what's new, like how you still excited about it. There's new stuff all the time. And there's new, and again, every situation there's, and obviously the material's getting better. So you can do way more for people that you couldn't do before, and it's great,
Did you ever to basically, I don't know, the lack of a better word, put your dad on the chokehold a couple of times, be like, no, this is the new thing. And he's like, nah, this is what I've been doing for the last 30 years.
No, well, here's the thing. So when I got there, again, I had only worked with digital stuff, and there was one of the offices had, a little films, and I was like, I don't even know what the first thing to how to even process this. I was like, so what we started with, it was just an X-ray sensor, right? But my dad's favorite line we used for the next 10 years is not just a sensor, because you get a sensor and then you got to get at this and then your computer don't work. And so he joked. So you talk about put him in a chokehold. So every time I'd come up with something new, I'm like, hey, we need to get this. He goes, just remember, it's never just a sensor. Yeah. So that was kind of his joke. But
yeah. If you could change one thing in your industry, what would that be?
Probably access to care. I mean, here's the thing. You talk about dentistry in general. If you've got a good insurance or things like that,
you're good.
You're good. And you find that people that don't, there's a lot of people that just don't go in until there's trouble.
Yeah.
During dental school, I was about 1 semester away from getting my master's in public health. They allowed you to take some public health courses on top of dental school, just to kind of, it was just a good way to be more well-versed in the area and how can you help? Yeah, more aware. So I took it was a 2-year program. So basically while I was in dental school, there was a group of us that took extra classes to do it. you find different ways to kind of help. And, with our practice, we do a couple days where we do just work for the counties that have children that are in school that don't, there's people that are their health is hurting because their teeth are hurting.
Yeah. And they're scared to coming in there because they know the bill's going to be 10 grand.
I had a gal that came in and she had broken a tooth a long time ago, and she goes, I just didn't know how much it was going to be, and this, and it was way less than she thought. Yeah. But again, she created this. You go to the doctor's office; it's expensive to go get, at the MD, right?
Yeah,
they charge you to check your blood pressure, right?
Oh yeah.
So these people go, gosh, and they're looking at all these things. I'm like, oh, this is a way easier scenario. But again, a lot of people don't come in until it's and it's almost too late.
Too late, yeah. And I think you mentioned something last time I was in there. You say, well, we're going to do this. We're going to get the fitting. And you come in and tell me if you want to do this process or it's too expensive for you, whatever. Yeah. And I think if people know they at least have that option, because we just assume.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know I'm not walking in there. I don't have insurance. And it's like, I do have HSA, but this thing might be 10 grand. And then you go in there, it's just 1,500.
Yeah. And here's the thing that now there's scenarios that you do that and you walk them through, and you have to go slow. It's how do you eat 1,000-pound cake?
Yeah.
One bite at a time, right?
The dentist just say that.
Yeah.
1,000 pound cake.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I should do something like a carrot or something healthier. But same kind of thing, But again, most offices do. They'll walk you through it, and you kind of go step by step. Because some people come in and they have a lot of things going on, and some of them think they've got a lot of things going on. They're just fine. But the ones that do, you have to kind of go slow. You got to realize if they hadn't been in for 20 years, doesn't mean we need to get this done today. What's the best way? And even if you have the fears of everything, I feel like our staff, or at least myself, I can get you in a spot where you're comfortable. You know what's going on. You might not love getting, a tooth pull or a root canal or whatever the case may be, because there's some things that can happen, but you're not going to be like shocked of what you're getting, or you're not going to be, asking any questions. It's just, you're
going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is some of the common myth you hear about your industry, people who are not in the industry talking about it, and you'd be like, that's not true.
I mean, here's the thing. There's a lot of the people come in with, they'll Google, right? They'll ask something, and Google's going to show you the worst case,
Of course.
So they're like, so a lot of times you'll come in and, they'll have preconceived ideas of like how bad something's going to be or things like that. Or they'll be asking you questions that, they've done their research, but they didn't know what they were talking, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna fix you up sometimes, but dentistry, they think they're awake, right? Every other surgeon, that person's asleep, right?
Yeah.
So we have to deal with the mind while we're doing it, and again, I love that part because you can put someone at ease. Or I've also seen situations where it's been the opposite, right? If and because again, as students, you learn along the way, and you see things, and you go, well, that was escalated quickly, and again, you just learn how to talk to people. Now, I did my little extra training at St. Luke's Children's Hospital in Des Moines. And so you work with a bunch of kids and then Cedar Rapids, and we did a little kind of a stint through dental school, and you get to know what to say, what not to say, how, because I'll tell you, work with kids all the time. You say the wrong thing, and I hate to say,
they're not coming in.
And adults are big kids sometimes. I've seen these huge guys that, could rip me in half, and they're so scared to just have, somebody look in their mouth.
Oh man.
So boy, and so again, we, and if you don't share the same fear, you're like, oh no, I love my dentist. This is great.
Yeah.
But boy,
what's some of the best advice you ever got from your? I'm assuming your dad is probably your mentor in this field.
Gosh,
what's some of the great advice you just like? Oh man, I'm glad he told me that.
There was a scenario. You talk about it's just more perspective. It's almost like I think the more people take different perspectives, the better off everybody is. There was a scenario in just very simply, there was a sign above our door, and we both are in the same location, and whether we put it on the street facing side or this, and and people were kind of huffing and puffing. He goes, and we're in the same building. He goes, and he's like, no more my right than his. It'll be fine. Just here I am like, this is where we wanted it. Well, that's where they want it. And then it was a simple thing. He's like, just let it go. Just let, it just, you just de-escalate everything. So it was more of just kind of, slow down when you're thinking, it just like everybody, think, twice and speak once, that kind of thing.
That's true.
Because even with dentistry, you have to know when to say something. It's just how about this? You just have to know the audience, know the people, and everybody's different. And I think that's what makes a good dentist or a good anybody is relatability. If you can somehow get to the same point for them, and that's what I guess, in long words, his advice is just kind of, know your person. If you got a farmer, don't go in there and tell him he should get these brand new white, crystal teeth, right? Know what's best for them.
That's true.
I spend hours, listening to just people, just, little pearls and things, I tell a lot of the kids, it's simple, but when the world is crashing, right? Say the world's crazy and you just feel like you're just going under and you're feeling buried, think of it, maybe you're being planted. You got sometimes through the worst stuff, the best come. And the best qualities of yourself, the best qualities, but boy, it's hard through that part, that fire. But, out of the fire comes, the regrowth. But it's true. But in every scenario, everybody's been that work, school, friends, especially kids. A dentist, I'll get a half an hour with these kids, 45 minutes with these kids. And I don't know how many, and I don't know what they're getting outside, right? And I don't know what influences they're getting, but I've had a couple, scenarios that, again, I'll tell some wisdom to a kid, and the mother would say, hey, sure. And I had a student, this guy wrote a paper about someone that he looked up to, and I didn't think I was as influential in that moment.
We don't know it, but I think every time you come into contact with another human being, you don't know how much you can influence them or inspire them.
Oh, man.
So that's why you got to always be careful about the words coming out of your mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like that might be the moment that God probably put you there to just do that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and you will never know.
We went to a clinical psychologist continuing education, our whole staff. And so, we always try to learn, right? Well, this guy it was great to hear. You just never know, what people are going through. We have used an example of patients getting mad, and I thought my appointment was today and it's next week. And he's like, well, let's break it down. Let's think about what could he be doing? Is he embarrassed? So again, just kind of, perspective, getting those things. He had so many pearls that, again, you can't remember them all. But boy, the people that think about how other people think, it's that's where you're at.
And you will be surprised how much everything can be tempered down if you say, you know what, it was my fault. I apologize, even if it wasn't.
Boy, he called it the surprise technique.
Yes.
He's like, if they come at you and they expect to be, hit right there, and you give back and say, hey, my fault, let's work on that.
Yeah.
And honestly, and I'll tell you, if you do that, because again, in dentistry, some people will be so mad, their tooth still hurts, or, and again, you're sympathetic for them, but you're not going to come going, man, I tried my best. You go, no, I know, I feel for you. Let's fix it. Again, and you should see how many people that are yelling at the front, barking at the front office, and, and the girls, and they'll go, oh, Gary's so mad at us. And, and you hear Gary, and he's just got a toothache. And he's grumpy when he's got a toothache.
And he might be going through some other things.
Well, that's the other thing. You never
don't know anything about it. Yeah. Your father was able to build this thing for so many years. You got to take to another 42, 45 years, whatever the case might be. How much pressure is that for you?
I would say this. I feel like when you gave us the start, I would say it would take a lot to get the train off the tracks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't feel the pressure necessarily. I mean, I feel like now that I've been given the gift, it's more pressure to say, keep using it. Again, I've got the means, I've got the staff that allows me to use it. As far as like, I'm like, oh, let's make this the biggest. Let's keep it. I would just love to. He just wanted people to be taking care of his patients, right?
True.
So when he asked me, how are things? How are the patients? That's the first thing. It's not like how's the business? How's this? It's it's the people, right? So again, so I think as long as you're, and it's kind of cool for him, right? he was seeing, people grow and their kids grow.
Yeah.
And now they've got kids who are growing. So now we're seeing like third, four generations of patients.
Come to the door.
So you see grandparents and so again, and it's a fun thing. So I think the pressure is just really, keep, he gave you the tools, he gave us the means that, I would say just keep the good deed doing going,
keep going. How do
keep
you,
the lights on too,
That's true. Yeah. How do you see the dentistry industry change? Actually, how with technology in the next 10 years, how do you, some of the things you see is like,
I think it's getting easier to give better care to more people.
Okay.
So like, it's just because of the advancements of the materials and the time it used to take to the time it does now, or the cost that it used to, to like, we figured out a way to do this. I think in 10 years, I think it's just going to be easier to be a better dentist also as a provider, because again, I think computers, when you had to have a good guy at the lab, creating this little tooth out of wax, right? You had to have a good one or your work was bad.
Oh yeah.
Right. Well, we're now the lab, so we get to control. And again, I think it's easier. Everything with technology is becoming
good and bad.
Good and bad. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. It's a whole nother.
That's a whole other conversation. Those are just the tools, and depends how you use it.
Yeah, and like I said, we do a lot of Invisalign, right?
Yeah.
So we can kind of do that with our scanner and 3D printing. And again, it's easier for me without having to send you to a specialist, an orthodontist, to do all this. We can do it, and we're trained in it. It's another service you can do. So I think more people are going to get better treatment because you can do more.
It will be interesting, and I think your father, he's probably in a different category because he did the old school dentistry and then the new school dentistry. So he watched this thing.
Yeah, they were the third office in Iowa to use this digital technology. So again, he was front running and doing all that.
Because it will be interesting to see the old school guy and then the new school and just show them the tools you're using now versus what there's
a dentist that had retired, and sure enough, he had gone to our Belmont practice, and we showed him that. He goes,
what is this?
He's like, this is cake. We used to have to pour this up and hold it still for 5 minutes, to get this impression. You guys just take a picture and off you go. Yeah, that's funny.
And are you a book reader?
I would say, how about this? I'm more of I like to learn about history. So I don't necessarily.
Oh, you're my type of guy.
Yeah. So I go down the rabbit holes. I get on, I learn something, and you down Wikipedia, and I'll read about this, and that'll get me interested. So then I'll watch documentaries on it. So I'm not like a chapter book. I don't like as much of the fantasy. It's more of like, I'm thirst for knowledge.
What type of, what the era or maybe history era you're fascinated the most?
I'd say the architecture of the old world and stuff like that. I mean, there's some really, like, when I'm talking old world, I'm talking, the stuff built in the 1400s, 1300s, the Greco-Roman. It's kind of cool to like learn about that. And, I don't know. It's those kind of things. Too, I mean, I like, world history. How did these people end up here and why? It's crazy now. Back in Egypt, they had dentistry, and they could show how they put gold wire through teeth to hold them in, and it's crazy to go back. And again, how many people were brushing their teeth 200 years ago? So no one had their teeth by 35. It's crazy.
Jeez.
Everybody talks about George Washington having wooden teeth, right?
Oh yeah.
So because he lost his teeth, so his dentures were made out of wood and like, hippopotamus teeth. It was this crazy concoction. It's like, man.
I think we just say those things because we cannot really comprehend how those guys lived.
Oh, man. We have people that are mad they have to run down to the store to grab something. And,
oh, man.
And it's...
Thinking about as a small thing as air conditioning.
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you, when you don't have it, you feel it. Right?
Yeah, but I think most of us is like we cannot even...
Imagine
not having those things.
Oh, no.
Not having a car.
No. Or I mean, again, it's like getting to Des Moines, right?
Yeah.
People drive there and drive back, or something. We're just going to go down shopping for the day.
For the day.
Yeah. Like a guy 200 years ago, they're like, what are you doing? You know what's crazy? Near Prairie Playground, there's a train called the Orphan Train. If you've never heard about the orphan trains, it's an unbelievable thing that I just don't think enough people know about. Basically, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, children who were either unwanted or children of the poor that they put these children, up to 500,000 to 1 million kids on these trains, and they would drive to each stop, and then people would come out and get these children. You talk about a crazy history.
Wow.
And here's the thing, you hear about this, right? It's a crazy. So I went down learning about it, but there's a train.
To look into that.
There's a train in Mason City. So how about this? So a lot of them stopped at the Catholic churches and things like that. You have all these little tiny towns. These families would come and they would take, and I'd say take like were they working and things like that. But I'd never even heard of it. I was taking my kids to the park, and there's a big black train that says the Orphan Train. So again, you go. So that's the kind of thing I look up to. Yeah. Well, and it's a wild thing how they had, at these world fairs, they would have children and incubate. You talk.
That's crazy.
I'll send you some.
I need that information.
But anyway, but Mason City was one of the places that stopped. They stopped on the railroad. So wherever the railroad was, they would load these kids on the East Coast, and they might have been from Germany, or they might from. So it was almost like they had these, millions of people they didn't know what to do with. Yeah. And people in the Midwest said,
bring them in.
We'll, take care of them. We'll help with the church. We'll help with the farm.
Oh, wow.
And that's how the majority of the population, talk about history. How did people get here? Why'd you land in Mason City? Yeah. Why'd you land in go down that hole sometime.
Yeah. Interesting. Because think about even way back, if your kid is born with any type of deformity, like handicap, anything, they think you have a curse.
Oh yeah. It wasn't good.
Not good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that was then, and everybody kind of believed in the society. Like
I know. So again, yeah. So which one are we doing now? That 50 years from now? Like, oh man, I'm sorry, but that's what they were doing. Yeah. I know.
Yeah. It's like, man, we're gonna be judged so harshly, so we need to be careful. When does the scientific research become unethical?
It's hard to know. I think there's the science with the animals, and there's the science with humans and things like that. I think everything's got to the benefits have to outweigh the not. There's good ways and bad ways to do things. Because they do a lot of testing on animals in dentistry, right? The enamel of teeth and the enamel in an animal is very similar to the enamel here. They have a lot of boards to find out. I think we're waking up a little bit to say, hey, this was too much, or this was too, really. And as long as the people are involved, are informed, right? Yeah. Usually there's enough testing to get to that point. But
now you're a history guy. If you could sit down with any historical figure, dead or alive, and have dinner with them, who would that be?
Man, that's a tough one. Yeah, because you talk about the guy that's thirst for knowledge. It's who's going to have the most interesting knowledge? Yeah.
And you only get one. You can't say you get 10 of them. Just one of them.
Man, have you picked yours?
Yeah, I think I have a few, but right now I'll probably say Socrates.
I was going to say, you have to do one of the big thinkers. The people that changed the way everybody thinks.
Yep.
Yeah, I took some philosophy. You hear the way they say things, it's like the knowledge of what they're thinking is so interesting. And and again, it's just getting us to think about it in a different way.
Yep.
How do you, so you talk about that. Probably one of the ancient historians, the Platos, the Socrates, the ones that have,
Yeah. Okay.
Or if you go even more, again, I was talking about like thinkers, And so I like history and science and things, like a Tesla, right? Nikola Tesla, who knew way more than everybody,
And that's sometimes I'm shocked too how much people knew back then.
I think we discredit some people, meaning I think we knew more and there was more going on than we're giving credit. Now, again, maybe not everybody had it, but there was some geniuses out doing some really cool things that maybe didn't make mainstream for 100 years, but they were doing it.
Yeah.
You talk about like a light. There's a really cool, in Paris, they used to have a festival of these artificial lights way before you talk about, Edison and the light bulb. He goes, well, how much of that was, well, we got started using this knowledge and this is what we made it. But boy,
what is your thought about death?
Death, man, that's a tricky one, so I don't know. I feel like a higher power, right? So I'm a Christian. I believe there's, heaven or what we would perceive as after, it sounds crazy. I got an appendicitis and I became septic and I almost lost my life. And I was in a coma for about 3 days, right? Not very long, but there was it's hard to explain spiritual moments, but I'll tell you, you talk about seeing the light and things like that. I almost have things that are almost weird to talk about as far as like, it was just such a personal experience, but like somehow, some way I came out of it way more sure that either, I'm not saying like, I don't know, it's not saying we're jumping on the clouds, all our buddies are there, but there's something that there's with that, it's not just a flat line. You're done. I think the soul or the mind and it has more to do. I mean,
how long ago was it?
That was believe it or not, it was my junior year at dental school. So it was on the Labor Day and I happened to just not feeling good and it just got worse and worse. So believe it or not, the only time I could have stayed in the same track as my dental school is if that would happen during radiology. I could read x-rays and I didn't have to do much, right? So I can make that up as I go. But so there was about 6 weeks, I was pretty much, I got really sick. So you get sick and then game weak. And so it took a long time. Like
how much did that change your life? Because I think the near death situation to anybody who would happen to them, it gives them urgency.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. They say everybody lives 2 lives. It's the first life you live. And then you live the second life when you realize you only have 1 life to live.
Oh, wow. I like that.
And you think about that, but that's kind of what it is. If you would have passed away right then, how many loose ends would you have had? Keep the loose ends tied, make sure all the ducks are in a row. Because again, life happens. It's a scary truth of the world. So, someone I was watching, it was like, okay, if you had, 1 hour to live, who are you calling and what are you saying? And that, and it makes you think. And he's like, if you had 1 hour, just that's it. And you're click, who are you going to give that hour to? What are you going to tell him? What are you going to ask him? It's like we don't ever live that way.
Yeah.
But boy,
we don't.
But if we did, how many more relationships would have been maybe, mended or just, I don't know. We're all honest with ourselves.
What impact would you want to leave in the world?
Somehow I feel that, whether it's a huge, group at once or individual moments, I kind of feel like I hope to just leave a little pearl of positivity or self-perspective to everybody, to my patients, to my friends, to my family. If you say, hey, not necessarily, oh man, he was the best, it's like I gained something from knowing him. I became a better person from knowing. And then I think that's a tough thing to, you hope, but really, so to do that, you have to continually do that, right? So you have to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yes, sir.
So it's tricky, but that's so like, and I've got my 2 sons, right? So it's like, what would I want them to know about me? If, again, right now they're little, right? But if I would die tomorrow and they're 18, what would you say, hey, this is what I was hoping, this is what I was like,
That's what your dad was about.
Yeah. Now my grandfather, so he owned the general store in town and he was very well off, but did a lot of good things for the community, the church, and he donated a lot.
And that's how we're going to be remembered.
And boy, I'll tell you, the people that knew him, and they know I was his grandson, but he left a mark. And somehow, whether it was personality, he said, he never met a stranger, meaning he talked to everybody, he uplifted, somehow he made that impact. So it's like, and he did it for a lifetime. And he unfortunately passed away at, like 63, I think. So pretty young, in the, not youthful, but young, so, but, again, when, it's one of those things that, so what I get to hear about my grandfather is what people tell me. So you talk about what's your legacy. That's what people know about.
Yeah,
you,
that's true. And I always say this, man, if you live all your life when you die and the only people you touched in your life is your immediate family, you didn't live, you existed.
That's true. Yeah. There was a guy, there was a podcast, and he was talking about how, at his grandmother's 90th birthday, all these people showed up, all the generations and all these kids and things like that all showed up in one room. And at the end of her life, it wasn't the car she was driving. It wasn't the house she was living. Your legacy is the people you are around and the people you touch.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, that's all I have, man. Anything else?
No, that's good.
That's good.
I appreciate you having me here. Like I said, I had a good time. It's, again, just deep thinking. It's good to have someone make you think.
Man, I love it. We can do this all day. Man, that was Dr. Erick Burns from Dental Center of North Iowa. Thank you, sir.
Hey, sounds good.
Yep.
All right, cool.